Moments ago, we got an update from officials in North Carolina after the FBI joined an investigation there into, quote, intentional and targeted attacks that left tens of thousands of North Carolinians without power. Utility crews responding to the outages found at least 2 power substations damaged by gunfire in Moore County. That's about an hour southwest of Raleigh. Local officials have not announced a suspect or a motive, and the local sheriff has not ruled it out as an act of domestic terrorism. Attacks on the United States power grid have been the subject of extremist chatter in recent years. And CNN's Whitney Wild starts off our coverage from Moore County, North Carolina, where it could be days before power is restored.
Moore County, North Carolina will again plunge into darkness tonight, 2 days after the sheriff says someone opened fire on 2 power substations a few miles apart in Carthage and West End, North Carolina.
Our medical calls have increased due to people maybe being on oxygen or having other medical devices that require power. We've had an increase in fire alarms. We've had an increase in traffic accidents.
Police are working to find the person or people responsible for what they say was an intentional criminal act. So far, they are releasing little information, saying only the attack happened Saturday night and a gate at one of the substations was removed from its hinges. Power went down around 7 p.m. The same time, a drag show is set to take place in the area. Social media buzzed with rumors over the weekend that the attacks were some kind of effort to stop the drag show. But police say so far they have found no evidence connecting the two.
No motivation. No group has stepped up to acknowledge or accept that they're the ones that done it.
The attack is the type of incident law enforcement and Homeland Security officials have warned about as recently as last week. The Department of Homeland Security updated its National Threat Assessment Bulletin November 30th, sounding the alarm about the potential for attacks on critical infrastructure. The outages have left the community here scrambling, and power likely won't be restored fully until Thursday.
Got no way to heat because we don't have a fireplace. And then we don't have no gas grill or anything like that, so we're just stranded.
Good. At McNeil Oil and Propane in Aberdeen, Davis Clark says they are the only fuel provider for about 20 miles. First responders and public works employees lined up throughout the morning.
As soon as the power went out, we started getting calls. We've figured out a way to rig up a truck so that we could fuel emergency services, the police, fire, EMS. And that's when we started that, and it was a long night, Saturday night, and we've been going ever since.
Clark is a third-generation owner of the family business, and this is the first time they opened it up for drive-through service.
I've never seen anything like it. Keep Moore County in your thoughts and prayers. I hope they find who did this, because it's senseless.
Earlier this year, the Department of Homeland Security issued a memo saying that since 2020, domestic violent extremists have been saying on social media and other online platforms that the energy grid is a particularly attractive target, Jake. So certainly what happened is that the Department of Homeland Security warned about something that ended up coming to fruition, which is very startling for law enforcement across the country. Meanwhile, here in Moore County, as they await for the power to come back online, schools still closed for tomorrow, and a curfew will be in place tonight, Jake.
All right, Whitney Wild in Moore County, North Carolina. Thanks. Let's discuss with Juliette Kayyem, the former Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller. John, walk us through what you think is likely happening on the ground in Moore County right now. How do these investigations work? How can they figure out who did this?
Well, it's great to know a motive, because that gives you a way to start towards people who have that motive, but they don't have that right now. So right now they're going to be doing video canvases, which is very hard in a remote area. Not a lot of video there. Trying to find where was the shooter. Did they leave footprints? Did they leave shell casings? Is there a fingerprint or DNA? Some of that work can be done by getting an entrance of a bullet and an exit if it went through something, and reversing that with a laser beam that can take you to a likely place where that bullet originated, maybe a shooting position that was secreted. But there's a similar case to this in 2013 at another power station in California that remains unsolved. Because of the areas they occur on, it's a tough one.
And Juliette, the sheriff would not say whether this was an act of domestic terrorism. How will investigators figure out what the motive is?
Well, if you find suspects, or just exactly what John was talking about in terms of if you have evidence that will lead you to someone, that's going to be the most helpful. They'll look at online chatter. There's lots of rumors about online chatter. But there's really only two options, or three. There could be a foreign threat, unlikely, just because it's such a small area, it's remote. It doesn't have that sort of impact that you would think a foreign attack would. It would be domestic terrorism, which would be focused on was something going on and the lights were to be turned out in an LGBTQ event. The third is, of course, an insider threat. And I just want to raise this because what we heard in the press conferences is the shooting of the areas was targeted enough to bring down two different facilities and impact that many people. You don't just drive by these places and know where to shoot. So they will be looking at the potential that there was either casing or someone who knew the area, knew the facilities, and knew exactly where to shoot. These aren't drive-by incidences. These are ones in which you're targeting directly. Those are the three options available
Interesting,
now.
and they would have to know quite a bit about infrastructure.
Yeah, these are big structures.
And John, as we've talked about, we don't know the motive, but you flagged a document that was passed around by some white supremacist groups in 2020 talking about targeting power stations in order to commit racially motivated attacks. It says, quote, peppered all over the country are power distribution substations that keep electricity flowing all over the country. Sitting ducks, worthy prey. With the power off, when the lights don't come back on, all hell will break loose, making conditions desirable for our race to once again take back what is ours. Obviously, heinous concept there. How might postings such as this factor into the investigation?
Well, we've been seeing that since 2020. So over the last couple of years, there's been a real uptick, and I think the Undersecretary of Homeland Security actually re-mentioned this today since it came out in a report in 2020, a real uptick in a focus on the power grid. I'm thinking back in 2020, I was seeing reports of the three individuals arrested in Las Vegas from the Boogaloo Boys group who were conspiring to attack the power grid. Neo-Nazi group, the National Socialist Order, suggested attacking the power grid in their online presence and in their documents. In July 16th, we had a Philadelphia incident where a drone flew into a power station, and I won't go into the details, but it was equipped to attempt to short out the system there. And then there's that 14-page document you're talking about, which kind of gives the how-to of sniper rifles and the power grid. So this has been a real focus on the idea that you cause chaos in the white supremacist or accelerationist movement that's bent on toppling the government, and the chaos will help you get there.
And Juliet, the sheriff addressed rumors yesterday that circulating on social media that the attack was perhaps an attempt to stop a local drag show. He said that investigators have not been able to directly tie that back.
No, it's even if someone takes credit and says, oh, I know what happened, it may just be hyperbole, big talk to say that they're in the loop. As an investigator's perspective, that's obviously relevant. What did she or he know, the social media posts that we're looking at? But you don't want to be dissuaded from the real perpetrators, as John is saying, and that there's a whole pool of people who could qualify, both because of their ideology, but also maybe their past employment. We just don't know yet.